Hey everyone, welcome back to the Trendcrusher podcast. I'm your host, Peter K, aka Trendcrusher. Now, if you're tuned in for the first time, well, I'm a metalhead based out of Bombay, India, and I've been into metal for the last 20 years. Now, one of the bands that I actually got into when I fell in love with Grindcore, and a huge shout out to my friend Kunal Choksi, who runs the label Transcending Obscurity. He introduced me to a band called Abaddon Incarnate, and they are my guests on this episode of the podcast. So I got a chance to speak to Steve and Olan from the band about their latest album, The Wretched Sermon, grindcore music, Irish extreme metal, and all that. So let's dive straight into my chat with Steve and Olan. Hey, and I'm joined by the guys from Abandon Incarnate. Welcome to the Trendcrusher podcast.
Oh yeah, what's the story, Peter? My name's Steve. I play guitar and do vocals in Abaddon Incarnate. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Peter, how you doing? And Steve, haven't seen you for a while either. How are you doing?
No, nice to see you.
I'm Owen, and play drums in Abaddon Incarnate.
Wow, and it's so cool, right? I mean, it's funny that you say that you haven't seen each other for a while. So I guess I should take credit so that you at least get some FaceTime, I guess.
Yeah,
for the
thanks,
next hour.
Peter.
So
Thanks, Peter. We keep our friends together.
I'm a dating agent.
yeah, but you know the reason why I've got both of you together is because your sixth album, The Wretched Sermon, released a couple of weeks ago via Transcending Obscurity Records, and I'd kind of lost track, but it's your first full length in 8 years. So I have to ask, I mean, how does it feel? Let's get quick reactions. And were there celebrations once the album was out?
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a long build-up to it. It's we all live in separate parts of the UK and Ireland. You know, there's two islands on the west of Europe. You know, and we live in different cities, so we never get to see each other really. So it's hard to get together and have a celebration. If we get together, we're probably going to do a gig or something, you know. But we haven't done that, and it's been such a long time coming out. We've just been, since it came out last week, we've just been busy with interviews and just following up on emails and just trying to get the orders out to people. And yeah, it's full on work really, rather than celebrations and relaxing. I've been quite busy today actually. I spent about 3 hours working on the band on the internet. So yeah.
Yeah,
what about you, Olan?
I think it's because it's taken a year to come out. I think we stopped listening to it a little bit at this stage, and so it was just kind of a perfunctory thing. It was like, yeah, okay, this is the release date. It happened, and as Steve said, we're working anyway. So I can't remember where I wasn't at home when on the day it came out, and almost missed it, if you know what I mean. And then,
wow.
So yeah, it was like, oh, because oh no, I was away. I know I was in Spain with it was my parents' anniversary. So yeah, it kind of then sort of in the chat with the band, it was like, oh yeah, it's out. Happy album release day. Like, yay. I mean, obviously it's out, but yeah, nearly a year to when we recorded it. So yeah, it's kind of trying to.
The way you get, sorry, you know the way you get the Facebook memories, like what you were doing last year.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've got this memory, like, oh, I've just finished recording. I'm having a can of Guinness. You know, that was relaxing. That was exactly 1 year ago. Like, you know, it's strange. It's taken so long to come out.
Yeah. I think the reviews and that are coming through now is kind of reinvigorating the whole situation. So it's kind of woken it all back up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously, I mean, for me, it's my first album with them, since Nadir. So yeah, it's been really good actually to get back to that style and kind of come back full circle again. So for that reason, for me, it's quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy when I think about it, right? Because back in the day, and I hate using that term, but like an album release date meant something, right? Like you'd get the actual physical copies or the vinyl, whatever, what have you, or you'd have like a release concert or gig of sorts. But in this in 2022, it's just like, okay, it's live on Bandcamp, Spotify, and things like that, right? And I mean, I'm not that old, but at the same time, I still remember standing in line to buy CDs at the store, right? And that was kind of fun because there was no, how would I say? I mean, there would be hype, but you didn't know what you were buying, right? Like what it kind of sounded like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, just how that whole dynamic has changed.
Definitely.
But
Yeah.
But I have to kind of touch upon, at least since you've spoken about the recording, what I was surprised when I was reading up on just some of the stuff you all had put in. By the way, whoever manages your Instagram page, thanks for doing that, because that's kind of cool, just seeing those tidbits that you guys put up with the pictures, the recording and stuff like that.
It's
So
all
I'm
on.
going to reference a
I
bit.
think the social media is a real sort of team effort, really, between Steve and myself. So
Yeah.
go through phases of doing loads, and then because we're
Yeah.
at different times and stuff. So
But one thing I picked up from one of your posts is that this album was actually written over 5 years, so 2016 to 2021. Having said that, how does it feel now? I mean, I get it once you've recorded it, but it's been like a slow burn of sorts, right? If you think about it, and especially in an age where you have like so many bands putting out music, what was that process like?
well, I mean, I can only obviously speak for myself in the years running up to it, but I think Steve and Bill had such a sort of a wealth of material. I mean, we've got so many videos recorded from rehearsals that I was kind of listening to or whatever. And I guess the distillation process of that was then within the 2 years of COVID and ultimately getting the songs that we settled on. But for me, it's the first time I've recorded an album with the build-up being completely remote. And I think when you get caught up in rehearsals and you have the adrenaline of that, and you can kind of convince yourself of the quality or the standard of the song. I think because we had so much time to sit at home and listen and re-listen and re-listen, and then one of us go, actually, nah, I don't like this for whatever reason. And then it was a way of filtering all the tracks out without having the excitement of rehearsals influencing it. I think it worked. But yeah, I mean, obviously on the writing process side, so much, I kind of came in on the end of it. So that's down to Bill and Steve's work over the years previous to that.
To go on tour, we went and toured a lot, and in between rehearsals for tours, we would write together, myself and Bill, and we just record on the phone now, this riff, and then we had hundreds of riffs, and then we all came together, myself, Olan, Arena, Bill, and we picked out what we wanted, and then we put them all together and made songs out of them. So that was the process, really.
Okay, so I couldn't make out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but was it you, Steve, or was it Bill? There's a video on your YouTube channel where it's like you literally came out of the shower and you're playing a riff. And I think that was really cool, right? Because in a day and age where there's so much... That's cool. But I'm saying, in a day and age where you're so overexposed of sorts, right? Like you right now know, thanks to Instagram, whether your favorite musician has had his cup of coffee or is doing that. Just capturing that moment, because I think it was so raw and unfiltered, right? To kind of understand that, hey, so when Olan was talking about the riffs, I had that visual image of just you and Bill having so many riffs recorded like that on the phone.
It's true. There's so many just like little scraps, 20-second, 1 minute scraps of like this crazy riff, and then we'd change it a little bit, and yeah, there's a lot of like really boring material. You could put like 2 hours up and just watch it with a beer one night and just go insane.
I think that's one thing that has really changed for Abaddon, particularly from my perspective, because I've been out and back in again. It's never really been about overproduction and sort of the slickness that's online now and the TikTok videos and stuff like that. It's always been pretty grassroots stuff, isn't it? That I don't think that has changed, and it didn't seem to have changed for me. And I mean, there is a certain degree of embracing technology, because without it, we wouldn't have the album, wouldn't have been written.
True.
But it was still very much like that. That's how the riff would get sent over to me or recorded on WhatsApp. So there was nothing slick about the demo process, but it worked. It worked, and I think if you get so focused in on the minutiae of making the riffs perfect and everything, I mean, Jesus, we'd never have got there, would we?
No.
It preserves the energy.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so hold that thought on the technology and the impact it had on the album.
First one then, Rising of the Lights, track 1.
Okay, and why that song?
I guess it's, I just had you put me on the spot, and the computer just turned on, and the random search went through the brain and just picked that one out. There you go. Track 1, Rising of the Lights.
Awesome.
It was a mindless choice, a mindless decision. Automatic.
Okay. I'll add the song later on in
awesome.
when I'm editing.
Yeah.
All right. That was Rising of the Lights, and I'm with the guys from Abaddon Incarnate. I've got Steve and Olan. Now, Olan, before we played the song, you talked about the impact of technology. And another picture from your Instagram, which I found really funny because no one really has put up such images, was the 4 of you on Zoom rehearsing.
Yeah.
Now, at least I want to get your perspective as the drummer. What was that like, really?
Yeah. Well, obviously, you had the whole kit set up in the front room, and just took over the whole conversation. So my job was DJ basically. So at that point, we pretty much had everything written. We maybe had a few extra songs, but so we obviously you can share stuff over Zoom, as you know. So we'd share the song, and the guys would just play along. So it was just a way of just having a bit of connection like this. And just getting the songs in our heads, especially for me, because I wasn't able to play. And I could rehearse upstairs on the electric kit, whatever, but it's not the same. And yeah, I mean, it was. I think it was Steve really sort of kind of pushed and instigated that. And yeah, it was just a way of having a few beers, having a chat, and run through the songs together, so people could be like, you know what, I'm not feeling it, whatever. But yeah, you could argue that there was no point in me being there, but I needed to listen to him. I needed to listen to him to get them in my head, because I wasn't getting the same chance to practice them. Yeah, no, I think it was really worthwhile.
A lot of the pre-production, online was actually done by Olan, because we would record the riffs and we'd send it to Olan, and Olan would record his drums, and then Olan would make a mix, Olan would mix it like a demo. So a lot of the atmosphere and a lot of the style, the vibe of the music was coming from Olan, because he was doing a lot of that pre-production work. So even though he wasn't playing drums in the rehearsals, he was actually quite, what he did was quite important in putting it all together. So
yeah, I think that's another thing, and they gave us the opportunity to do that, which we wouldn't have had in rehearsals. Like on the little piano piece at the end of Killing Spree, that was just an accident. One day, a friend of mine sent me over this thing. I stuck it on the demo, sent it to the lads, and they were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So we were able to experiment a little bit with things that we maybe wouldn't have done if it was just a traditional recording and rehearsals.
Yeah. And it's great that you kind of embrace technology, right? Because like over the last few years, I've spoken. No, and that's no knock on you guys. I'm just talking as a general statement, right? Because
Luddites, we are. Death metal, grindcore Luddites.
Because like the last couple of years, I've spoken to so many bands, and then they're talking about. So in the last couple of years, I've spoken to so many bands, and they're like, you know what? Fuck this recording remotely and stuff like that. Like we want to get into a studio and kind of jam. So it's kind of cool just to see and just get that unfiltered kind of view, right, of how things were done and are still being done. But Steve, to come to you, right? There's something that you said, and I want to kind of get your view on this, which is, you described the Wretched Sermon as, I can feel all styles of the previous 5 albums are represented here, but also pushing things a bit and creating something new. Now, was that a conscious thing that you were trying to do with the album, or is that something that, since Olan talked about the distillation process, was that something that very unconsciously you noticed happening?
I think the one thing that we did try to do differently is just focus more on songwriting and just writing good songs, rather than just throwing riff after riff after riff because they might flow. I'm looking at the bigger picture and saying, well, we need to start, a finish, a middle, we need to break down, we need to come back up again, and we need to make the whole thing, fit together like a real song. And there was a lot of thought went into the actual songwriting this time rather than just lashing riffs together and hoping for the best. And that's the only really conscious change, I think, evolution that we had. Otherwise, a lot of it was taken from the old style, because we always have the same influences. We still listen to the same music, same type of music, so that's always going to be the same. We're always going to write that type of riff for this type of music. But what changed was we were pushing it a bit songwriting wise and just making. It was almost like having a producer, but we were the producer. We were saying let's arrange this a bit better. Let's fine tune this. Let's fix this a bit better. And I think it really paid off. I'm really happy with the result.
Okay, so let's address the big question, right? And I think this is the question that every band that has been releasing music over the last year or year and a half has been asked. So if it wasn't for COVID, would the Wretched Sermon happen?
I don't know. Good question.
I don't think it would have ended up, as I'm saying, the way it did, because we wouldn't have listened to them in the same way. I think all of us had an obsessional phase of listening to the tracks over and over and over, which I don't think we'd have done if, in traditional rehearsals. So I think it had an effect. I think because I had never really used GarageBand before.
Oh, wow.
And so there was that learning process, linking it up.
I never used that.
Yeah, so we really haven't used it. So for me, there was an added enthusiasm. That's what kept it going for me, because drumming wise, I'm not good at rehearsing just on my own with headphones. I need the energy.
Yeah.
So doing it that way definitely kept it interesting. And we were able to experiment loads, because sometimes I think, because if I'm playing and it's energy and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, love that blast beat because it feels good. Guys are obviously hearing something different. This way, we're able to put a blast beat over something. Steve would be able to go, nah, not working for me. So I go back, change it, send that back, and it was really good that way because you could properly listen to it. So would the album have recorded? Yes, earlier than it did, but I think the feel of it would have been totally different. But I
also think we would have been touring a lot more and playing a lot more gigs. So we wouldn't have paid so much attention to the detail and the quality of the songwriting. We would have just said, quickly, we have to write a song because we have a tour next month. So let's write some songs, and then we have to practice the set for the tour. And this way, we had 2 years just focused on the album, really, or a year focused on the album. So yeah, it's definitely come out a lot better because of COVID. Really, COVID was a strange blessing, although it was shit because we didn't get to play live and do our thing. But on the other hand, it did kind of make us, stay at home and do our homework and do a good job of the writing. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, which brings me to what you guys were talking about in terms of your Facebook memories and stuff like that, right? Exactly a year ago, you guys were done recording the album with Chris Feeling of who's well known for his band Conan. So what was that experience like? I mean, how long did you all spend in the studio? Were there any restrictions and stuff like that at that point in the UK?
No, there wasn't. We were coming out of lockdown then, weren't we? It was pretty cool. It was there was still a few restrictions, we had to wear masks and shit like that, and on public transport, but there was no restriction on movements, and you had to have certain passes to get over back into Ireland and that, because sometimes we met up a few times to actually rehearse for real, and there was a lot of paperwork getting over the border and that. But yeah, it wasn't really such a big deal with the lockdown at that point. I don't think. Can't remember.
Chris was pretty chilled about it, and we'd all come over, obviously tested negative or whatever, and Chris was happy we were in our own little bubble. Chris was just going home and back to the studio, so and he's really chill. I mean, I'd worked with him a couple of times before, but yeah, it was just pretty relaxed, wasn't it? I mean, the obvious stresses and tensions of recording an album, but Chris was just really good to work with, and he's a really nice manner, of getting you to keep doing things without really winding you up. So,
so what is it like? I mean, especially since Olan, it's been a while since you were in the studio with the rest of the guys. But what was that experience like? Like, was it like just hanging out with friends again, having drinks, or was it like some ribbing? What was that like?
Well, as Steve said, we'd obviously managed to get rehearsals together, so we kind of got over that bit of having not played together for a while. No, it was quite full on. Again, I think everyone knew they had a job to do. We had 10 days to pretty much get it all done, so we knew we couldn't screw around too much. So yeah, I think there's always a degree of intensity, and there has been in past recordings as well with us, because I think everyone just really wants to do their best, and I think it adds to it. That definitely one thing that people have always said, I think, and including obviously the albums I wasn't there for, is that there's always that energy and intensity with the Abaddon recordings. I think it does come out because there is that real sort of drive to make it as aggressive or as intense. Okay, it's not the most, but it's genuine. It's not energy and intensity for the sake of it. The energy and intensity comes from the real belief in the playing and the vocals and the drumming. Definitely, I don't think you can play stuff like that and transfer or get that message across if it's not genuine.
True.
It'll sound forced, which was a song of ours too. But
we stayed at the studio. Sorry, we stayed at the studio overnight, so we slept there for 10 days. So in the afternoon and the early evening we record, and then in the late evening we'd sit around drinking beer and talk about what we did. And we'd have a notepad and we'd just go through things and listen and go, let's change that, let's fix that, So it was 24 hours really just focused on this, and it was pretty stressful. I mean, when we came home from the whole thing, and that Facebook memory of me with my kind of Guinness in the sunshine in my backyard, I was just so drained psychologically, and I was just relaxing. And I remember thinking that we did really work hard. Yeah, so it was cool. It was good. It was well worth it again,
Yeah. No, and just to add to Olan's point, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things I really enjoy about like grindcore more than anything else, right? Is that message kind of comes across in there, and you cannot kind of fake it, right? Not knocking on like other subgenres and stuff like that, but like with grindcore, you just have it or you don't, right? And I think that's one thing I really enjoy, and especially like considering I listen to bands from like all over the world, right? There's some like fine thread that kind of ties everyone together. It's just that pissed off anger kind of thing that they just need to like get out of their system, and this is the best way. So this segment, I'm gonna kind of do it slightly different from the first couple of segments, where we're gonna talk about music in general, right? And one thing I really enjoy talking to musicians is just to kind of understand, what kind of music they enjoy. So let's, who wants to go first, Steve or Olan? All right, Steve. So what's the kind of music that you really enjoy? I mean, one thing I want to definitely pick on is what you said earlier about touring, right? And the great part about touring is you get to meet other bands, you get to like listen to other bands, especially on the road. So what's the last couple of years been like for you? Like, have you been listening to a lot of extreme music, or is it totally the opposite?
Me?
Yeah.
You're asking me?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Talking to me?
I listen to a good mix of stuff. So I would listen to, all Nuclear Assault, Slayer, Megadeth, thrash metal, like, from the 80s. I love that kind of 80s thrash metal sound. Battery, and then death metal wise, I'd be listening to, Morbid Angel or Luciferian and some stuff like that. All old shit from the 90s, really. And then I'd also, listen to 70s rock and stuff like that as well. Like, Led Zeppelin or Coven, Black Sabbath or Black Widow. Twisted Sister, Van Halen, all kinds of stuff like that. It depends what mood I'm in, So sometimes, if I'm driving the car, I can't really listen to distorted music because my speakers are so shit. So I need to put some clean music on. So I listen to, Van Halen or Twisted Sister in the car. And I do a lot of driving in my job. Like sometimes I drive 4 hours a day. So I just be listening to, 80s rock or 70s rock on the thing. But then when I come home and I'm at home, I'd listen to more extreme music and have the better sound system.
Okay. And do you, and this is just a hunch based on what you're saying, right? Because I noticed, like, over the last couple of years, I went back and revisited a lot of albums. Did you have a similar thing, or like you didn't want, or you don't listen to a lot of new bands and new releases currently?
Me?
Yeah.
I would listen to new stuff. If it comes up on Facebook, I will listen to it. I'll check it out, definitely. But a lot of it doesn't stick. It doesn't stick, and I don't remember it. Like, as soon as I listen to it once, I'll forget it. I'll go do something, something with my day, and I'll just completely forget, and then I'll come back to the next thing. We'll come up, oh, that's a cool riff. That's cool. That's a nice sound. I like that. The words, the name of that song. I like the imagery, and then five hours later, I've completely forgotten about that band. And I don't know if it's because I'm a bit old and demented or whatever, but this new music is just not sticking in my head. I don't know why. I really have to have some kind of personal connection, like I know the people from years ago, or for it to really just sitting there. And I don't know, when you're say 16, 17 years of age, when you hear new stuff, you really absorb it, and it really becomes part of you and your musical identity. But nowadays, it's very transient. Stuff just doesn't stay in my head anymore. I don't know why, but that's my problem.
Yeah,
what about you, Olan?
I'd have to agree, and I'm not just saying that for this, for the sake of ease, but I think nostalgia is a powerful thing, and so yeah, that old school, as you said, like Megadeth or whatever. I mean, I listened to Ride the Lightning the other day, and I hadn't listened to it in ages.
Ride the Lightning's awesome. It's just the best Metallica album, really.
No, and so there is all of that, and then it sets you off on a journey, and you'll go back and you'll listen to really old stuff, and of course from when we got together first, I mean, Morbid Angel still absolutely love them. Malevolent Creation, Eternal for me was like a really, really influential album. Brutal Truth as well. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And yeah, on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and there are some really, really hardworking guys out there. You guys included, who every Friday will list off the sort of the multitude of albums that are being released, and they'll talk about, I'm not going to mention bands' names because there's A, too many, and B, you don't want to put anyone down. But so I'll say, okay, this one's popped up a few times, and the same thing. I'll listen to it, and it's like they're technically amazing a lot of the time, really impressive stuff. But a lot of it just lacks soul, it lacks that thing that kind of goes, fucking hell, yeah, that atmosphere, wow, it's not actually about how fast or, how deep down tuned or whatever. You can tell these guys have got something in here that they're transferring through the guitars or whatever. And I think if that doesn't come across, then it leaves me a bit cold, and I rarely come back to it. So in some ways you're probably missing out on stuff then, because you start to get a bit, kind of maybe dismissive, but it's difficult to keep up. And as you said earlier, so many bands are releasing albums now, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So
Like
yeah,
I think in the last year and a half, I mean, I keep saying this every year, and at least in the last 4 to 5 years that I've been keeping track, I keep saying like, oh my God, there's so much music. And it's literally sometimes because I get hit up by so much music or there's so much being released, and that you have like a soft spot, just like Steve said, right? Like for certain bands that you know, or things like that. I mean, I'll be honest, right? Like that's why I'm talking to you guys. It's just that because I remember picking up that CD from Kunal all those years ago, and I was like, "Fuck! Like this is something that's interesting. I need to kind of check it out." Right? It's that exact thing. I mean, this example is exactly
we're
what.
lucky that we kind of had our first 2 albums out before the internet really took over. Like The Last Supper and Adair, but we're really they were just magazine, fanzine kind of. That's where all the promotion was. There was very little internet promotion, and I think we're lucky because that stuff that was released before the internet stuck with people a bit better.
Yeah.
And once the internet came down, there's too much saturation. People just go on to the next thing really quickly. And if you're a new band coming out today, you've got so much competition with the oversaturation now. It's just it must be impossible. It must be really difficult for people. I really don't understand it. Yeah. It's disposable, yeah. It's disposable. Yeah. It's like everyone wants a TikTok video now. You watch it for 20 seconds and then you need to watch the next thing, and nobody's going to watch that TikTok video ever again, you know? You watch it once and that's gone. And it's not like, yeah.
No, but I'm just trying to think, right? And does that you're talking about, right, have an impact on the way you create music or your approach to music? Just the fact, I mean, like the way you're consuming music, right? You want to create music that people can kind of relate to. You want something that will stick with people, right? Like this CD right here, like you want in like 10 years people to hold it and be like, fuck, I remember buying the CD, right? Is that something that you think about, or I don't know, just a thought?
It's not, when we write stuff, when we create music, I think we just do it honestly because we just want to write a good song that we would like to listen to, or we have we start a riff and then we go, where will this go? I want it to go there, and then we follow it to go there, and we're just thinking about the song. Is this a good song? We're not thinking about who's going to listen to it or will it last 10 years or anything. We just want to finish the circle, you know. We want to get a complete song finished. For me, anyway, that's the way I feel. I don't really think of the will people like this, or is this going to be popular with the kids, or is this going to be played at somebody's funeral one day?
but when I think about it, right? Yeah. I mean, it's so strange that when you talk about the TikTok videos and the Instagram reel videos and stuff like that, Grindcore is kind of perfect for it in a way, right? Just like a less than 1 minute duration. Exactly. So who knows? Maybe
I don't know why, or if it's probably been done already, but you could probably just have a purely TikTok grind band that just has TikTok songs. It doesn't have any other format. It's just TikTok videos, and they could just do some fucking It's got to exist. Okay. It's got to exist. Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone ends up doing it, just hit us up in the comments and like just give credit, right?
We've given you all an idea. Okay. Now go for it and do something with
it. Yeah. Okay. Now, I have to be honest, right? At this point, like when it comes to like say the UK, of course, you know there are so many metal bands, and if you think about it, like UK is kind of the home of metal, right? Like that's where metal kind of originated. But when I was thinking about it and prepping for this, I don't know a lot of bands from Ireland, and I don't know why that is. Like, is it so for me primarily, but also for all the listeners? Is there some bands past, present? Because like what I think is like, a lot of bands are being discovered years later. So is there certain bands that you'll want to give a shout out to or think that people should definitely check out? Please, you can go, I don't know, Olan, Steve, who wants to go first?
For Irish grindcore band, there's two really good bands at the moment. The one's called Unyielding Love. The other one's called Grief Eater. But it's kind of a sludge grind crossover thing going on there. Both of those bands are really good. Just current bands that I'd be into at the moment, anyway, from Ireland.
Old school wise, Zealot Cult, I think.
Yeah, Zealot Cult, death metal wise, yeah. Zealot Cult
are good.
Definitely. Malthusian, quite popular at the moment. Koskra, a new band that are just brought out an album. They're quite competent and good. But I think the reason why you don't hear so much about Irish bands is compared to British bands is when we were starting out, like 95, 94, when we were going to the studios, no engineer had any idea about what to do, and this is in the mid-90s. They were like, what is this shit? Why are you turning the amp up to 10? Why are you playing so fast? Why are you screaming in the microphone? What are you fucking doing? And this is in the middle 90s. And if you go back to the UK, 88, 87, you've got Carcass, Napalm Death doing the first albums. Yeah. They were 7, 8, 9, 10 years ahead of us in Ireland with what they were doing. And it just took so long. Like, it was so difficult for us to get engineers, or even to go to a bar and get a gig. People were like, what the fuck is this? Why are you screaming? Stop screaming.
The attitudes in the UK, I mean, up around the Midlands, Birmingham, and then up to Sheffield and everything, but with the way that society had gone with, the coal mines and the way industry went, and it was quite, deprived areas, and there was a lot of anger and sort of angst there. So I think it lended itself to that more punk and the development of music in that way. It was, a lot of people were more receptive to it. Whereas Dublin, relatively affluent, and you had a lot of sort of upper class guys being in metal bands, and but there was a weird division, I think. And when we came out doing the sort of the heavier stuff, it was, I think, we're pretty much, other than it was
Morphosis.
Yes. Who would you say around the time? Who?
Morphosis and Purify were doing.
Yeah, we're about the only other ones, I guess, and they disappeared too soon. Unfortunately, they were awesome.
We were the only bands. We were the only guys doing blast beats and stuff like that back then. But also with the UK, they've got the history of Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Saxon, all these bands. And they go back into the 80s, late 70s. And Ireland, we've only really had Tin Lizzy. That's the only kind of really big rock band we've had. Besides U2 or some shit like that. So, it's like.
Well, I didn't want to bring them up, but you did. Just saying. Oh God! I mean, I have to say, can you imagine like going abroad and they're like, "Hey, you're from Ireland, same country as you two."
It happens all the time. When you go on tour. You go on tour in Australia or somewhere, and you're after the gig, you're at a bar, and then some random asshole come up and go, "All right, mate, you from Ireland? How about that? You too, there, mate? All right," and you're like, "Fuck off with you too." Bono, The Edge, yeah, man. Yeah, we all hang out together on barbecues.
But I mean, since this has come up quite a bit, I have to ask at this point, right? Have you guys played at all in the last year since like the lockdown has kind of eased up, so to say? And what's that been like? Okay. And
in April we played a festival in Ireland. It was the Siege of Limerick festival. It's on twice a year. It's a pretty big gig. And we were lucky enough to play the big stage there on last April. And it was a strange one because it was the first time we were on stage since 2018. I think it was the last time we played.
Wow.
So I was hyper nervous. I was practicing at home. My little finger wasn't going fast, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this." But then when we actually got on stage, we just clicked into it, and it was just automatic. It was fine. It was just like riding a bike. So,
but do you guys, since you talk so much about just like missing the road, do you have any gigs kind of lined up, planned out, especially considering it's summer in the UK and the rest of Europe, right?
Yeah, so we have the issue that we're all because we live in different parts of the UK and Ireland, we have very demanding day jobs at the moment. The next opportunity for us to do any kind of tour is at the end of December, and we have a week put aside there to do like about 4 or 5 gigs, but we have no further details. And we're also in the process of booking for festivals next year and looking for tours next year as well. So and there's lots of things in the pipeline there. We just have to figure out how we're going to do it all, how we're going to fit it all together. But it's definitely get back on the road, because we need to tour to sell shit as well. Because you can sell so much online, but the bulk of your sales and the bulk of getting your t-shirts and your CDs out there is on the road. So it's essential, and it's the whole reason I do it anyway. I do this thing to play live, so it needs to.
Yeah. So definitely something to kind of look forward to, and also to stay tuned. But before I wrap up, and this is a slightly tougher question to ask, but especially with a band like yours, I have to definitely ask this, is that, and I was looking this up, right? I mean, you guys formed over 30 years ago under the name Bereaved. And Bereaved, sorry. So you all formed 30 years ago under the name Bereaved. And I was reading somewhere you guys played a MTV Battle of the Bands, I think somewhere in 95, and got second place. I don't know how I found that trivia. And since then, you'll have done so much stuff, right? I mean, changed of name, members come and go. What's next really for you guys to achieve? I mean, like, do you all plan that out? Is there something thought, or, you're just looking at the next couple of years playing live?
Just as regards that MTV Battle of the Bands, that was actually Abaddon Incarnate's first gig, I think. Olan was in university at the time, and he got us that gig. And we played 2 gigs. We played like just a normal gig, and then we got into the finals, and then we came second. It was absolutely fucking awesome, because we were a brand new band, and we were kind of a little bit nervous, like, are we going to be able to do this? And we got respected above all these fucking shit mainstream indie bands. There was like fucking 50 bands or something playing on, and they picked us. It was just like, well, okay. But as for the future, what's the big plan, Olan?
I think it's. I think personally, getting on some of the bigger festivals would be awesome. Planning big tours and stuff like that. That's so tricky, and it's so expensive now. So it is about being realistic, but it comes back into the fact that there are so many bands out there, and it's all a lot about who you know, isn't it? Especially bands at our level. But I would love to get on to some of the bigger festivals. At whatever level in the festival, it doesn't matter. And I guess thinking about another album, before 8 years is up. It wouldn't have been 8 years, it would have been sooner than that. And everyone keeps mentioning it and calling it a comeback, but the band never split. Yes, members have come and go, but I mean, Bill and Steve have kept the band going the whole time, so it's never gone anywhere. It's just circumstantial and having the opportunity, and then of course COVID knocking things back. So, but I think that's. That'd be, for me, would be more festivals and another album, I guess. Nothing.
If you
surprising.
think about that 8-year break, in that time, like we toured Russia twice, toured Australia twice, South America, just so many, played about 20 festivals. It wasn't really a break at all. We actually had I went over to Dublin there a few weeks ago, and I met up with Bill and Lorena. We had a little bit of a band meeting. And we were just talking about this very question, and we were talking about writing again, because we have a lot of new music, so we want to start compiling that again, and just start to make some new songs, and also book on festivals next year. That's the big thing. And so awesome. Writing new material, and maybe get another album out in a year or two, hopefully.
Awesome. So I definitely look forward to chatting with you guys before that happens. And I wish you guys all the best.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah,
for this interview. It's been amazing that that you've heard the band before and that you followed it up by giving us this opportunity. Thanks very much, Peter. We really appreciate it.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thanks, Peter. Good questions.
Yeah, it's been a good talk.
And that was Steve and Olan from Abaddon Incarnate. What a great chat. It's really awesome to kind of get into the music with some of the bands that you really enjoy listening to. And that's something I really enjoy as a self-confessed music nerd. Now, huge shout out again to Kunal Choksi from Transcending Obscurity. I'm going to leave a link, like I said, to all their merch, music, CDs, and all that good stuff in the show notes. But that's a wrap for me. Before I sign off, you know what I'm going to say. Hit subscribe below and stay tuned for when I'm having these chats, which is almost on a weekly basis. If you're a band and you want to be featured on the show, just hit me up on social media. I'm Trendcrusher, but I'll see all of you next week. Cheers.